There was a time when parents dropped their kids off at the playground and expected them to come home with dirty clothes, grass stains, and maybe a scraped knee. Nobody worried about rubber safety mats, warning signs, or padded equipment, because playgrounds weren't designed to be perfectly safe. They were designed to teach you something. You climbed higher, jumped farther, swung faster, and every bruise felt like a badge of honor. Today, many of those same playgrounds would never be built. Some would be shut down before the first child even climbed on them. So what changed? And what did we lose along the way? You know exactly what I'm about to say before I even say it. The metal slide that scorched the back of your legs in July. The monkey bars that felt 10 stories tall until you were the one hanging from the top rung. The seesaw that could launch you into the sky if your partner bailed at the wrong second. The merry-go-round spinning so fast your knuckles went white just holding on. The rocket climber shaped like something out of the space race, daring you to reach the very top. If you grew up anywhere in America between the 60s and the 90s, you didn't need me to describe those. You just felt them. In your palms. In your knees. In the exact spot on your shin where the bruise always seemed to land. Now here's the part that's harder to picture. Every single one of those was sitting on concrete. Or asphalt. Or, on a good day, a thin scattering of gravel. No rubber mats. No wood chips. No padding of any kind. Just steel and wood bolted into hard ground, and an entire generation of kids climbing it anyway. The bell rings, and within minutes, a wave of kids floods out of the school doors and scatters like marbles across the neighborhood. No phones buzzing with check-ins. No group chats. Just a mother's voice somewhere off in the distance, calling out the only instruction that mattered: be home when the street lights come on. That was it. That was the entire parenting strategy. And more often than not, out meant the playground. Not a playground with a rubberized surface engineered by safety consultants. Not a playground designed by a committee that spent 18 months debating fall zone radius. A playground built out of steel and wood and concrete and one very simple philosophy: kids need to test their limits, and it's not our job to stop them from finding out where those limits are. This wasn't negligence. This was the culture. This was how an entire generation of American parents believed children became resilient. You didn't build confidence by wrapping a kid in bubble wrap. You built it by letting them fall and get back up. And here's the thing nobody talks about. Those playgrounds weren't accidents of design. They were intentional. Engineers and city planners in the post-war years believed physical risk was part of the developmental process. Danger wasn't a bug, was the feature. To really understand how we got those steel jungle gyms of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, you have to go back further than most people realize. The modern playground movement in America actually started in the late 1800s, in sand gardens built for immigrant children in crowded cities. By the early 1900s, cities like Chicago and New York were building elaborate playgrounds with wooden towers, slides, and swings, all under the belief that structured outdoor play could keep children out of trouble and off dangerous city streets. But it was the post-war boom, the 1950s and 60s, that really industrialized the American playground. Steel was cheap, manufacturing was booming, and suburban development meant every new neighborhood needed a park. Companies like Miracle Recreation Equipment and Game Time began mass-producing the equipment that would define a generation's childhood. The rocket slide, shaped like something out of the space race. The tall metal jungle gym, a geometric dome you could climb into and disappear inside for hours. The seesaw, simple, elegant, and capable of sending an unsuspecting kid flying if their partner jumped off at the wrong moment. By the 1970s, these playgrounds were everywhere. Every school, every park, every apartment complex courtyard. And the equipment kept getting bigger, bolder, more ambitious. Monkey bars stretched higher. Slides got steeper. Merry-go-rounds spun faster. There was almost a silent competition among manufacturers. Who could build the most thrilling piece of equipment a city was willing to buy? And underneath nearly all of it? Concrete. Or asphalt. Or, if you were lucky, a thin layer of gravel. Cushioning wasn't really part of the conversation yet. If you fell off the top of the monkey bars, and you would, eventually everybody did, you hit the ground exactly the way gravity intended. Nobody flinched at this. This was simply how playgrounds worked. Parents dropped their kids off at the park with the same casualness they'd drop off a bag at the dry cleaner. Go play. Come back for dinner. If this took you back to a specific swing set, a specific slide, a specific scraped knee you can still picture, tell us about it in the comments. And if you want more forgotten pieces of American childhood brought back to life, subscribe to the Nostalgia Vault. Every decade has a story. We're just here to tell it. By the late 1970s and into the 1980s, the American playground had reached its golden age, and it mirrored something much bigger happening in the culture. This was the era of latchkey kids, both parents increasingly working. Kids given real independence, real unsupervised hours, and a real expectation that they could handle it. The playground became more than equipment. It became a proving ground. A social structure all its own, with unspoken rules that every kid understood instinctively. You didn't cut the line for the tall slide. You didn't get off the merry-go-round while it was still spinning, unless you wanted a face full of gravel. The bigger kids ruled the monkey bars, and the younger ones learned by watching, waiting for their turn to prove they belonged up there too. Think about the specific equipment that defined this golden age. The rocket climber, a towering, cone-shaped structure of metal bars, designed to look like something NASA might have built, that kids would scale like it was Everest. The tornado slide, twisting and turning with zero visibility around each curve so you genuinely didn't know what was waiting at the bottom. The witch's hat, a spinning, cone-shaped swing that could genuinely launch a kid across the yard if too many people piled on at once. And the asphalt underneath the swing sets, worn down over years into deep, smooth grooves from thousands of pairs of sneakers dragging to a stop. You could tell exactly how popular a swing set was by how deep those grooves ran. This was also the era where playgrounds started showing up in pop culture, as the backdrop for entire childhoods on screen. Movies, sitcoms, commercials. The playground was shorthand for American childhood itself. Freedom. Community. And there was something else happening underneath the surface, something sociologists would only really name years later. This physical risk-taking, the climbing, the falling, the getting back up, it was quietly teaching an entire generation something about resilience, about consequence, about the fact that actions have outcomes and sometimes those outcomes hurt and you survive it anyway. Nobody called it a life lesson at the time. It was just Tuesday afternoon at the park. But somewhere in the middle of the 1980s, the ground started shifting, literally and figuratively. A wave of lawsuits began rolling through American courts. Children injured on playground equipment, broken arms from monkey bar falls, head injuries from merry-go-round accidents, burns from summer-hot metal slides. Cities and school districts, once fearless about liability, suddenly found themselves facing massive settlements. In 1981, the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission released its first handbook for public playground safety, a document that would slowly, quietly begin rewriting the rules of American childhood. It recommended fall zones, cushioned surfacing, height restrictions, spacing requirements between equipment. At first, these were just recommendations, suggestions, but insurance companies started paying attention. And insurance companies talking to school boards is a conversation that changes everything fast. Throughout the late 80s and into the 90s, the tall metal jungle gyms started disappearing. The rocket slides, the towering monkey bars, the merry-go-rounds that spun a little too fast. One by one, they were quietly removed, replaced, or simply not rebuilt when they wore out. The concrete and asphalt gave way to wood chips, then rubber mulch, then poured rubber safety surfacing. Equipment got shorter. Slides got gentler. Merry-go-rounds all but vanished from the American landscape entirely, deemed too unpredictable, too hard to regulate. By the mid-1990s and into the 2000s, a new generation of playground was standardized across the country, brightly colored plastic instead of steel, rounded edges instead of sharp corners, height caps around 6 feet instead of the old 10-foot towers. Manufacturers like Landscape Structures and Game Time pivoted entirely, building their new catalogs around a single guiding word that would have sounded almost foreign to the playground designers of 1975: liability. And somewhere in that transition, something quieter than legislation was also happening. Parenting itself was changing. The generation raised on scraped knees and unsupervised freedom began raising their own kids very differently, watching more closely, intervening sooner, worried about dangers that felt more urgent than a fall from the monkey bars. The old playgrounds didn't die because anyone hated them. They died because an entire culture, from the courtroom to the living room, decided that risk itself needed to be managed rather than experienced. If you grew up in those decades, you remember the specific feeling of the metal slide burning the back of your legs, and how you jumped on anyway. You remember the exact height of the monkey bars that felt impossibly tall until one day it didn't. Those playgrounds are almost entirely gone now. Torn down, replaced, softened, rounded off, cushioned into something safer and something smaller. And maybe that's a good thing. Fewer broken arms. Fewer trips to the emergency room. Nobody's arguing kids should get hurt on purpose. But somewhere in all that softening, we quietly removed something else too. The specific physical experience of testing your own limits and discovering you could handle more than you thought. Of falling and getting back up and doing it again anyway. The playgrounds we grew up on would be illegal today. Torn down before a single child climbed the ladder. And maybe that says less about how dangerous they really were, and more about how much we've forgotten what it felt like to be brave. If this took you back to a specific swing set, a specific slide, a specific scraped knee you can still picture, tell us about it in the comments. And if you want more forgotten pieces of American childhood brought back to life, subscribe to the Nostalgia Vault. Every decade has a story. We're just here to tell it.